Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Well, we've reached part 3 of the Anniversary Okami special, and to be honest, I don't feel like I've hit that much when it comes to this game, but there's still so much more to talk about, but I've got to start closing the door for now, or else I might end up doing this for the rest of time. So we've talked about major characters, concepts, and ideas, as well as minor ones too. And there are still many other characters to cover, but what haven't we touched? Well, I think some locations and very broad concepts within this game are far too overlooked. So let's wrap up this marathon with one of the most beautiful aspects of this game, the landscape and imagery. One of the unique aspects of this game that I want to lightly touch on, though, is this concept of taking care of nature, constantly. Now, we all know that in a lot of games made in Japan, they're constantly bashing our heads about how we need to respect Mother Nature, but see, that's just it. In the US, we dominate nature for the sake of progress. Japan does a lot to protect nature. Some examples include building around local flora, honoring aged plant life, and my personal favorite, mandatory recycling. That's right, you must segregate all of your trash before you can throw it out. That process still drove me nuts when I lived there for the second time. In the game, you constantly assist nature along, feeding all the animals, helping things grow. This Captain Planet concept is absolutely everywhere in this game. On the topic of animal feeding, and I admit this is anecdotal, but this constant feeding of the animals in Okami reminded me a lot of this place in Japan called Nara, where large deer would just roam one of their biggest parks. I've never seen a greater symbolism in Japan with the relationship between nature and people. Now, this doesn't mean that they always get along. In fact, sometimes the deer just exert their own power over the local people. But it was just so trippy seeing how casual the people and the animals were with each other. No pins, no cages, just nature and man chilling out. On the topic of taking care of nature, there is just one little bit of information I need to add on to when it comes to Sakura. The tree in which she dwells in is called Konohana, which is the same name as the blossom goddess that I talked about in the last episode. So really, this just completely seals the deal. Sakura, without a doubt, is Konohana Sakuya Hime. Next, I've got quite a few people asking what in the world was up with Sasa Sanctuary and what it had to do with Japan. I mean, a bamboo-covered resort location run by sparrows? We aren't hitting Hatoful boyfriend levels here, are we? Oh, of course not. Believe it or not, the choice of name, location, and characters actually makes a lot of sense. But let me start off by telling you the parallel Japanese folk story, which is called the Tongue-Cut Sparrow. And I think by the end of it, you'll already understand its connections. Once upon a time, there lived an old couple. The man was a kind, gentle individual, while the woman was greedy, selfish, and truly uncaring about anything but herself. She cared nothing for her husband, and she would repeatedly remind him of this with her lack of love. One day, the old man found a wounded sparrow. Having little else to show compassion for in his household, he took the sparrow in and nursed it back to health. The two became inseparable. The hag of a wife, however, hated the sparrow. Its constant tweeting grated against her ears. Sometime later, she had enough of it and cut out the tongue of the sparrow, driving it away while the old man was gone. When he returned, he was devastated by what his horrible wife did. He went searching for his beloved sparrow, and as luck would have it, he found his old friend, now speaking to him and inviting him to his home. Once there, the sparrow's family honored the kindness of the old man by serving him wonderful meals, dancing, music, and days of other festivities. When it was time for the old man to return home, the sparrow family gave him a full basket as a gift. When the man returned home, he discovered that his basket was full of treasures: coral, diamonds, gold, jewels. When his hag wife saw this, she too sought out the sparrows. When she found them, they offered her one of 2 baskets. She chose the heavier, thinking the 2 were both full of jewels. When she returned home and opened the box, demons and other foul creatures sprang out from the box and tore her to shreds. The moral here? Don't be a greedy hag. Now, before I say anything, I'm sure a lot of you already get the parallels. The resort area run by the sparrows is similar to the sparrow family providing food and entertainment for the old man. The treasure Amaterasu receives from finding Chun reflects the treasure given to that old man. And in fact, the hunter that is also at Sasa Sanctuary claims that he helped the sparrow and was too rewarded for his actions. The odd thing here is the old man of the story seems to have 2 identities. First the hunter, and then Mr. Cutter, who is the enemy of the sparrows. And then there's Mrs. Cutter, who carries a box of demons on her back. I suppose this all makes sense now, doesn't it? Lastly, the name Sasa comes from a kind of bamboo that grows in Japan called Sasa nipponica, for obvious reasons. An interesting fact about this bamboo is that according to the Kojiki, one of Japan's oldest history books, the kami, known as Ame no Uzume no Mikoto, used the bamboo in a naked dance to lure out Amaterasu after Tsukuyomi had betrayed her, in order to restore light to the world. Whew, well, that was a lot of info for just one area, and I know that I'm running out of time, so let's do some quick generalizations of other locations in Okami before I have to close up. The vast overworld area known as Shinshu Field is actually parallel to the current-day Nagano Prefecture. In ancient times, Nagano Prefecture was called Shinshu. The kanji for Shin could actually be a clever pun on words, as Shin can also be written to mean God. For those of you who are confused, kanji can be pronounced in many different ways depending on the word. Kusa Village also hides an interesting tidbit of folklore if you look close enough. In the Japanese version of this game, Kusa Village is called Kusanagimura, loosely meaning grass village, much like its English name. But hang on a second. Pull away the word mura for just a moment. Kusanagi. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, let me explain. Remember in the first episode I talked about the sword that Susanoo gave to Amaterasu when he found it in Orochi's tail? When the blade was passed down to Yamato Takeru, he used it in order to cut down tall, dry grass that was burning as part of a trap set by an enemy warlord. He then dubbed the blade Kusanagi no Tsurugi, or grass-cutting sword. Kinda cool, huh? One last thing before I go, let me quickly talk about the River of the Heavens. In Okami, it served as a basic tutorial level, but interestingly enough, it also has a little bit of cultural reference. Its Japanese name is Amanogawa, literally River of Heaven. But what you may not know is that Amanogawa is also the name that Japan uses for the Milky Way. Fairly small, but I thought it was kind of cool. Anyway, folks, I think that's all I can touch for now. Like I've said a dozen times before, this game is huge, and the sheer amount of cultural references it has is also just as big. I do wish I could go on, but I think 3 episodes covering this game is enough. I do eventually want to come back to this game and its sequel Okami Den, but I think it's time I moved on to a few more broader concepts and perhaps some other countries as well. I also have a few things to prepare for, including my own wedding. Yep, Aki and I finally have a date and we're getting hitched soon. I'll have more details about it shortly down the road. We have a few interesting things that we want to share with you all, but that's for another video. In any case, thanks for watching everyone. This is Gaijin Goombah, signing out. Speaking of Aki, she makes a brief cameo in Ronnie's new video. And yeah, I guess his video that talks about the genius conveyance of Super Metroid is alright, I guess. Also, check out MatPat's Game Theory episode, where he picks apart Gerard's brain and figures out what makes completionists tick.